welcome back to Tall Boy Radio. Thank you if you joined us last week. Last week we were talking about technology in sport, whether it was a good thing or a bad thing, and how it can, as it turns out, differ opinion on that matter. This week it's something different again. We're going to be talking comedy, and we've got a guest on, somebody who's done stand-up comedy, somebody who's done comedy promoting, and hopefully is a generally funny guy, funnier than the three of us anyway, that's for sure. So let's go around. Let's introduce the regular guys first. Who wants to go first?
I'll go first. That seems to be the general. Just hi guys, great to be back again. Really looking forward to this. We possibly need some tips on sort of comedy and timing and comedy timing and all that sort of stuff that goes with it. So let's wait and see where it goes. Tonight I am drinking. Don't you see that? A bit of Elvis juice, which is beautiful, out of genuine TBR merchandise glass. So looking forward to this. Let's see where we go.
Top man, Andy.
Howdy. I'm on the Robinson's triple hop. I'm drinking out of a tall boy glass for once as well.
Nice.
And has that one been dishwashed yet?
No, it's on a higher shelf, so Amy can't touch it.
Good man. And I am drinking a Northern Monk Stars and Stripes. I don't know if you can see that one. And it is a peanut butter and jelly flavoured porter, 5.9% of quality goodness. And I tell you what, it is an absolute humdinger. I've had it before, but I didn't even let it go cold last time. I had to try it straight out of the can, but this is an absolute beauty. So anyway, without further ado, let's introduce our guest. If you'd like to say hello, Dave.
Hi, good evening. Yeah, I'm Dave Appleton from Warrington, comedian and corp star manager.
There we go. Yeah, Dave and I used to work together in, a few years ago now when I was working with the Co-op. Many happy times there. Some of them were with the Co-op as well. So what we're going to do tonight, we're going to talk a little bit about comedy, because, Dave, you do a little bit of the old stand-up in your spare time, don't you?
I do. I don't do as much as I used to, but I do jump in and do some comedy, and I've been running a comedy night now for just over 5 years.
So how did you get started on that then?
Literally, well, a lot of people always thought I was a bit of a funny guy, a bit of the class comedian and all that side of it, always tell a nice story. And my local at the time started putting on an open mic comedy night. So I started going along to it and watching it and got to know the guy who was running it. And he kept saying, Dave, you've got to have a go. You've got to have a go. You're a really funny guy. And I go, I can't do this. Hold the mic in front of all these people and, do comedy. And no, I can't do it. And I kept saying no. And in the end, he just come to me and went, Dave, your name's on the poster for next week. You've got to do it now. That was it.
Bloody hell. I tell you what, though, because it takes some gumbo, doesn't it, to stand up there and talk in front of a crowd of people. Well, it's not even just talking. I'm you know me. We've worked together in the past. I'm a pretty shy guy. don't like talking in front of people, but to do it in front of people and then to try and be funny with it as well, that does take some balls to do that, dude.
It does, but on the very first night of doing comedy, there was a guy there called Steve Titley. And he was a comedian, but he came just to watch. And he got me to one side. He went, "Are you nervous?" I went, "Of course I'm fucking nervous." He said, "Well, what are you nervous about?" I said, "Well, I'm not bothered about standing up in front of people. I'm not bothered. And the more people for me, the better. The fewer the people, the more nervous I get." He said, "Well, what are you nervous about?" I said, "People might not laugh." And he went, "Easy." He said, "How many times you've watched your favourite programme, you think it's hysterical, and you sat at home on your own watching it, do you laugh out loud?" I went, "Not very often." He went, "There you go." He said, "If they don't laugh out loud, doesn't mean they don't think you're funny." And that gave me all the confidence to get up there and do it.
And how did it go, that first one then?
It went absolutely fantastic, but it went that well. I got a bollocking, really, because open mic get 10 minutes historically. And he said, "Dave, it's your very first time. I'm giving you 5 minutes." and I got a bollocking for doing 11 minutes.
Fair play.
Wow, brilliant. And then it went from there. Fantastic.
What style was it? Did you have like a not a script, but like a queue of jokes to tell, or do you tell stories? And
Well, yeah. So I don't know how much comedy you see these days, but very, very few people do one-line jokes now. It's all storytelling, observational. You get very few one-liners. And the guy who was running the night, Craig, I said to him, well, give me some advice. How the hell can I remember all these jokes? He went, do it as a story. And so that's how I did it. And I started off thinking, well, what can I do? What can I say? And basically, I started on my first day at the co-op, and just some of the funny things that had happened, and then ad-lib it a little bit, and it just went really well. And then just adapted to when I met my first girlfriend, and then we get married and things like that. And it works because you're telling a story that you can remember.
Fair play. Fair play.
Brilliant.
Something you reckon you could do, Gaz? Could you?
I can stand up in front of people and talk. I can do that. Yeah. I mean, I teach for a living, so I can stand up in front of people and talk brilliantly. I haven't got a problem with that. If you've been listening to some of the back catalogue, I probably talk too much. But yeah, I don't think I could. I think everybody thinks that they've got the odd dad gag here or there, haven't they? It's like, what's that one-liner that you like to come out with and stuff? And my daughters pretend to laugh, but sort of cringe in the corner, sort of thing. But no, I don't think so. I don't think I'd have the confidence to do it, just because I'd be on the stage and I'd be looking out, and as you just said, if they weren't laughing, I'd be like, oh my God, I'm down on my arse here. You know what I mean? I'd be like, oh my God, they're not finding it funny. And then, of course, I suppose it's an ever decreasing sort of circle. Then it's like, oh my God, I'm not funny. So therefore, you sort of, I suppose yourself, you deflate a bit. I don't know. I'd be just so worried about being funny. I just wouldn't be. Do you know what I mean? I think that's I just couldn't do it. I haven't got stories to do it. And no, not for me. Not really. I'd love to think I can. Don't get me wrong. It'd be brilliant to tell funny stories and gags, but no, I don't think I can.
The closest I can equate it to is being best man at a wedding. And it's because there's a similar sort of pressure to that, isn't there? If you've ever done it, and
it wasn't funny on that. No, yours is. My shining moment. I wasn't funny then either. It was either end. But it's funny because I did tell some stories. Yeah. So going along with what you were saying, I did, instead of just telling. You tell little anecdotes about Adam. You know what I mean? So that's I suppose. Yeah, that's I suppose the closest. You're right, actually. That's probably the closest you come to. Yeah.
Yeah, a bit of pressure as well for Andy because he's best man as well next year. Oh no, this year now, isn't it, dude? You got that to come.
A year.
I was even put back.
Yeah,
there you go.
Plenty of time for some new material then, kid.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So have you ever done that? Have you been best man at a wedding, Dave?
Do you know what? I've never had that opportunity. I've helped to write a couple of best man speeches for mates, but I've never had the opportunity. The closest I ever got was Bleeding Brother, and he went and got married abroad. Me going on 5 minutes.
Full enough, actually, more of my brothers did that as well.
I've done it. I've done it twice, and it is a bit nerve-wracking, and you're right. It probably is the closest you get to it. But I'd say even then, you're standing up, telling your stories, and it's really difficult and I don't know if it's the same with comedy, but it's really difficult trying to strike the balance between stories that me and Adam would find funny. Obviously, Adam has agreed with me as the best man, that we would find funny because I'm telling a story about Adam, but then there'll be people in the room that actually probably don't know that story, and therefore would they find it funny? You're sitting there, you're like, am I dying on my arse here or not? Because it's really difficult to gauge what, so yeah, I'd be worried about that too much, I think.
That's it. Have you so obviously you organise comedy nights. Have you ever had that where you've had some guys just stand up there and everything has gone out of his head?
Oh yeah, quite a few times. Because you'll get people of all different experiences and levels and everything else. So my comedy night, I've open mic, like 4 or 5 open mic. I'll do up to a maximum of 10 minutes and finish off with a headline paid comedian. But so you can get all levels. You'll get the guy who's never ever done comedy before, who really wants to give it a go. Some more established acts who won't come and do new material. But yeah, you get the ones who'll come on and they're giving you all this before the start and how wonderful they are, and they just lose everything, and the head goes down, microphone goes down, and the most hardest part is when people don't know when to stop.
Yeah.
I went to a comedy night in Edinburgh. It's just a comedy club. There was like, I think it was the same sort of thing. So there was one guy I hadn't heard of, if I'm going to be really honest, and they were sort of bigging this guy up at the end. But before that, they had this guy come on, and I was there with the wife, and she remembers it. She says to this day she still thinks about that poor guy, because it was St Andrew's Day, and he came on, and instead of going straight into his routine, he did a couple of jokes about it being St Andrew's Day. And he threw himself out of his rhythm, and you could just see it. That was it. He just stopped and he stared blankly, and he just stared at his microphone and literally didn't say a word. Then just apologised and left. And it's like, oh, you felt sorry for this guy. And literally, he stayed in the dressing room all night, and because it was a bar. Literally, the only way to leave was actually to leave through all the guys who were having a drink, and everybody's sort of saying, "Don't worry about it, dude. It happens." But gee whiz, I tell you what, I felt for that guy. I did. I felt really, really sorry for him, because he left and he looked crestfallen. I thought, man, fair play to having a bottle, to getting up and doing it, but when it goes pear-shaped, it goes pear-shaped. So yeah, that's the reason why I asked that question, because I fear that is the sort of thing that would happen to me if I were to have a go at that.
So who's possibly who would be somebody that maybe has either done your sort of comedy nights, or that you've sort of promoted, that we, in the nicest sort of way, with the greatest respect, who that we might have heard of or seen, or who's the people that we might recognise?
Well, like, to be fair, the majority of the comedians there are all open mic. Some are going to be on, are going to make it big time. Some it'll just be a hobby and they'll just fade. In terms of who you might have heard, and you'll go with, headline twice. I've had Smug Roberts. If you've heard of Smug Roberts, he played the landlord in Mrs. Brown Boys. He's a Manchester lad. He's big on the circuit. Another one you won't know. Have you ever heard of Tiny Tim? He does the prank phone calls.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Tim Bradbury. He's been 3 or 4 times. Right. Absolutely fills the place. He's real good. And then I'd say the next lot who's going to make it big is Adam Rowe. He recently did the adverts for Nationwide, and he was actually, as a comedian, I've known Adam now doing comedy for about 5 or 6 years, and he'll be doing theatres and stuff soon.
Right.
Yeah, I think I know the guy. And he did it as a stand-up, didn't he? The Nationwide, they ran a few of those where there's a guy on stage just telling jokes. Yeah, I remember that. Oh, fair play. Yeah. Fair play. So how did you get into organising it then, dude? Because I know because I used to work with you. You're a pretty busy guy anyway, with the extracurricular stuff you do with work.
Yeah, I've never got a minute to myself, honestly, never ever. Now, what happened was when I used to start doing my comedy, and I did it at the Orford, which was my local at the time, then I just used to go and support the night and perform and do performances around the Northwest and etc. like you do. And the lad who was running the night, he had a bit of a fallout with the landlord and also work commitments and everything else, and he nominated me to take over the night. So I then become promoting the night and organising it. So it's quite an experience, different, to think what actually goes on at putting the night on.
Yeah.
And how far do you think you could take? Would you like to, let's not disrespect the place that you're doing it for now, but, would you like to take it on? Would you like to, is that something you could do sort of full time?
Do you know what? There's some guys out there who've gone and took it to, to that level, but to actually make money out of it, you'd really struggle. You think that some of the comedy clubs that are out there in Manchester and Liverpool alone, and they're not making millions. They're making living enough to get by. But saying that, there's one guy, Colin Haver. I'm really proud of Colin, because Runcorn lad, so we won't hold that against him. But very first ever open 10 mic spot He just said, "Look, Dave, can I have a go?" And then he started doing it more and more. Then he got bigger and bigger. And then I gave him his very first compare slot, and then his first headline spot. And he runs his own nights around Runcorn now, 200 seats and what have you once a month. So, and he's doing well out of it. But again, it's just hobby. He's got a full-time job.
Yeah.
Fair play. Because when we've been to a few of the comedy nights, haven't we? We've been to the one in Manchester, the Comedy Store there. We've been to the one in Liverpool. We've seen some really, really good acts there. People that you sort of think, this is somebody you're going to be seeing on the telly soon. Who's the rapper? What was his name?
Wait, what, the guy that just did the random words?
Yeah.
I don't know. Was it Chris? Was it Chris something? Chris?
Chris Turner.
Chris Turner, that was it. Yeah. I don't know whether so this guy, he was quite funny and so told some stories and some gags, and then he was like, right, let's pick some random words, and he'd basically shout out to the audience like, give me a random word, and obviously there were various stag do's and hen do's, and people had a beer and stuff, and they were shouting out literally just like random words. And did he pick? Is it 5 or 6 random words? And then he basically went into this rap, and he did it all, I say effectively ad lib off the top of his head, and it was brilliant, wasn't it? And he basically got all these words into this rap and this sort of song, and it was brilliant, wasn't it? And it literally like everyone
so
was
clever.
Like, oh yeah, incredibly clever, and everyone's like, oh my god, that's like brilliant. So yeah, we saw him. We saw the guy from, was it the guy from The Chase, Paul Sinner? We saw him. We seen him sort of stand up, and he told, it wasn't sort of one-liners as you just said. It was more stories, anecdote sort of thing. A couple of stories about the other chasers and stuff. And again, he was quite funny, wasn't he?
Yeah. Zoe Lyons was the head. Are you familiar with Zoe Lyons, the comedian there, Dave?
No, I don't know her.
No. You'll recognise her. Literally, before we came on, we had to Google her to find out who she was, wouldn't we?
Yeah.
But that Chris Turner guy really stands out. And there was a guy called Martin Moore as well, a big bearded chap. And in fact, he was selling CDs. I know me and Andy went and bought one at the end, but we saw him on my stag do, and I tell you what, he was funny. He was quite abusive towards me, to be fair. I was a large part of his routine, unfortunately.
You were a large part. You did, and it's weird because was he the one that? Yeah. I won't go into too much detail just in case there's various libelous actions around that. But yeah, he did dig you out a little bit, didn't he, on that show?
Yeah,
and actually, with no prior knowledge of you, really, did he?
No, pretty bang on, though, wasn't he?
He was pretty bang on, to be fair.
So, is that something you've ever done in your career? Do you ever sing about somebody in the crowd? Because that's one of the things. Like I say, I'm a shy guy. I hate it, Dave. But do you ever do that?
Not a great deal. I can do it, and you've really have got to be on a flow, and have your comebacks there. There's some people who are absolutely fantastic at it. Like I say, that Adam Rowe who mentioned, he's fantastic. He's one of the residents there at Water, and another guy you might have seen there called Freddie Quinn, a big bearded guy. He's always on TikTok now, but he's, again, fantastic compare, and he can just pull things out of thin air about, a job, something about you, and just destroy you for half an hour over it. And it's cool.
Yeah. This guy literally he pretty much just destroyed Ad with it. I mean, he must have been on for half an hour, 40 minutes, whatever his slot was. And literally like 15 minutes of that was just destroying him, and it was brilliant. It was highly amusing. Other than for Adam, who just sat there and sort of squaring. But to be fair, he had a dig at Andy as well a little bit. I think he mentioned he did have a bit of a dig at Andy as well. That was funny.
Yeah. I just went back to my pint. But...
what's this? I know you mentioned obviously you come across this guy. So. Not that I will ever get to that stage, but in terms of how do you deal with hecklers? How do you deal with people that you're in the middle of your flow and you get that one guy or that one woman that perhaps has had a bit too much to drink and then starts heckling? How do you deal with that? How do you shut them up?
Oh, it's difficult, and it's knowing how to shut them up and how to move on to something else. I'll give you an example. One of my claims to fame, which I'm not. It wasn't my gig. It was nothing to do with me. I wasn't even running comedy nights. I was a trainee store manager at Rainhill. Remember Bernie, Adam? And she'd organised a charity do in St Helens, and they had this young comedian, up and coming lad by the name of Johnny Vegas to do half an hour of comedy. Never been heard or seen of, and he gets on stage, really, really funny. Girl on the front row, pissed out of red, starts giving it him, and he's giving it back. She's giving it, he's giving it back. It turned into just an argument over a fence with this woman, and Johnny didn't know how to turn off at this point, and he disengaged the whole audience, and he just turned nasty. So the manager stopped for the break, and I was nominated to go and tell Johnny that he couldn't come on for the second half.
Bloody hell.
It's just knowing that one come down and just to move on and ignore him, and just hope that works, really.
Because there's various things that you see on, it comes up on YouTube, and it'll be like, how to deal with a heckler, and there's a couple that I've seen, sort of Jimmy Carr, he's done a couple of things, and there's a couple that he's had a heckler, and he said the odd one-liner and stuff, and you just think, okay, that's fine, and that's obviously become a famous sort of clip or whatever. But for that one famous clip, there must be, I say, tens, hundreds of clips that you sort of try and deal with a heckler in a funny way, but actually, as you just said there, it just turns into, can you just shut the up? You know what I mean? Literally, and it just become then a effectively slanging match, doesn't it?
Yeah. Well, one of the best things is to say, "Hey, love, it's not telly. I can actually hear you."
Yeah.
Shut the fuck up.
If you were that funny, then people would be paying to see you. You know what I mean? It's just the odd, and I suppose you, in a way, yes, you want to engage with the heckler because actually you might think, oh, here's a chance to be funny, and then engage the rest of the crowd. But you don't want to engage them to such a point that you then turn off the rest of the crowd, I suppose, and the rest of the audience, because ultimately they've paid money to see you, and therefore, they want to be entertained. They don't want to hear you slagging someone off, I suppose. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I remember reading Frank Skinner's autobiography, and he said when he was up and coming and he was first learning his trade, he had a heckler, and it was like he was upstairs above a pub, and it was this old guy, and I think he had a guide dog with him as well. So he on top of that, he was blind, and he was giving like Frank Skinner loads from the bar. And, at one point, Frank said, I just stopped talking. I didn't know what to say because I wanted to say something witty, smart back to it. But this is an old blind guy. So obviously, as he went quiet, obviously this guy's blind. So this blind guy goes, has he gone? And that's it. And this is the whole crowd just burst out laughing. And that was his set done. He said, you just couldn't top it.
Brilliant.
Genius. So one of the ideas that we've had for Tall Boy Radio that Gaz is utterly excited, can barely contain himself about, is taking what we do, this an hour-long podcast, and we're doing 5 days at the Edinburgh Fringe. So 5 nights, literally. Maybe Mr. Mark Weaver, who very well, has threatened to come up and join us and be a guest. Obviously, because as we said at the start while we were talking, it is unfortunately the one that we had him on is the most popular episode of the podcast that we've done. So he's threatening to come up to Edinburgh Fringe with us because he spent a week there, as we said, performing his play about Lumpman Joe and the salt mines of Winsford. What would be your top tips to give idiots like us?
Idiots like you. Well, for a guy who's never been but heard an awful lot about it, is one, probably don't go.
That sounds like very, very good advice.
when you talk to comedians who put themselves through this hell of loading up a car and driving all the way from Birmingham to Scotland to stay there for a month in a rat-infested old woman's front room and pay her £700 a month, and then to do a bucket collection at the end and get £2, and 3 people in there heckling. It's not as glamorous as people make it. When it works well, it works really, really well. But I've heard the guys going down there and sleeping in the car for a fortnight. It's frightening. I think if you're going to do it, first of all, is plan a long time in advance and book your rooms and get it as dirt cheap as you possibly can. And two, then obviously piggyback onto someone else's room, because obviously it brings down the costs again, and also you think the IT equipment and sound and everything else, you help use others' equipment, and then you've got to have someone who's got to promote it. Then they're out giving out flyers for 7 hours a day.
Yeah. You see, it's funny because Weaver said that, and he's like, "Oh, you know what?" He said, "I dressed as a cow or whatever it was, and I was handing out flyers to every man that would basically take one." And I'm just there thinking, I really don't want to have to do that.
One of the things he said, you go out into the street, do a load of blue jokes as well. So they get people coming to see him, expecting to see one thing, and then they had a play about a man who mines salt in Winsford, of all places, which no one in Scotland's ever heard of. And I don't think it went over particularly well.
If you go in to watch, I think it's great because you can pick and choose, and you've got everything there, the good, the bad, and the ugly. As for performing, I'd be nervous about it. Saying that, I have had one of the comedians who's come in headlines, a guy called Graham Messiah, and a couple of years ago he won the best joke in Edinburgh. He did 101 one-liners in half an hour, and he won the joke of the
Go on,
best.
what is it then? What is it then? You must remember it.
Oh yeah. His joke was his dad asked him to sign up to the donor card register. He said, "He's a man after my own heart."
That's quite good, to be fair. That is pretty good, to be fair.
Nice.
Yeah, nice. we might be out of our depth together.
Yeah, well, yeah, you say that, but yeah, there's a couple of one-liners, but there's like a repertoire of like 3 jokes. If you came on like every night, you did the same 3 jokes every night.
But maybe we're overselling it with the idea of doing Edinburgh Fringe. One thing we ought to try and do, and this would be pushing ourselves out of our own comfort zone, really, is maybe recording a live episode in front of a live studio audience. Maybe that would be the way to go. And we're not pushing ourselves on you here, Dave. Let me make that very, very clear. But that might be something that we potentially could do.
I don't mind the idea of recording. I actually like the idea of recording a live episode and it might be maybe, as you said, piggybacking on the back of somebody else, and maybe if they're on stage or they're performing or whatever it may be, if we are perhaps at the side and we're doing a live podcast at the same time, and then maybe we can get people to dip in and dip out and give us a 5 minutes here or 5 minutes there. I don't mind that, but actually performing, it sort of terrifies me a little bit, if I'm honest.
Getting heckled by our own family.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which we know we would, because I mean, when we planned the live darts thing that we did, when we did the marathon darts, like Andy said to my wife, "So what time are you thinking of going down and watching?" And it was like, "Well, I wasn't." Thanks for the support.
Do we have to? Yes, you do. We will be genuine record holders, so yes, you do. Oh, right. Oh, okay. Thanks very much for that.
That's it. I tell you one place, and this would be interesting for you, Dave. We are incredibly popular in Poland. We should look at doing a trip to Gdansk and getting some of the treats.
I tell a Lech Wałęsa joke in Gdansk. It'll be perfect. I'm telling you.
Love it. And we've got our tips from the gin experts that we had on a couple of weeks ago as to the different gins that we could get out there. Yeah, we are. Is it number 42 in the Polish charts?
Yeah, we are. I don't know who quite in Poland loves us, but we are number 42 in their podcast chart. So long may it continue.
In the documentary branch, believe it or not. So yeah, Dave, we have been in the Polish charts now for I think maybe 4 months.
Yeah,
in the top 50 in Poland for 4 months. We can't get our heads around it. We don't know who's listening out there. We appreciate whoever it is. So thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Teach English before they come over here.
I don't know what you learned from our show, to be honest, Dave. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure English should be one of the things you could learn from it. So COVID-19 then, it's something whenever we talk to people, you can't not talk about it, unfortunately. We don't like talking about it, but obviously that's had a massive impact then on what you do, hasn't it?
Yeah. So obviously, everything cut ground to a halt. The comedy nights just were thinner and thinner in audiences as people become more nervous, and then obviously the pub shut. So then what I did, I set up the virtual pub, and that was a big success. So it was set up as a private group and invited everyone I knew who went to the pub, and then friends of friends and what have you. And it was great. So I just tried to make it like home from home, just so people can keep in touch. So on a Monday night, I do play your cards right with them all. Then we'd have a quiz night. We'd have a comedy night as well. I'd ask comedians to record all different stuff, and they'd send it over to me. On a Friday night, the resident DJ would be DJing from his back bedroom and everything else. And it was absolutely fantastic just to keep everyone together. And we're still doing bits. Obviously, now there's quite a lot of normality to it now. A lot of people are in work and doing something. But yeah, I still do a quiz once a week with them and a bit of banter and everything else. And it keeps my sanity there as well.
Yeah, I bet. That's a decent way of doing it, to be fair. So have you done any of your live comedy then how does that go over on Skype or what have you?
It's strange because there's none of that feedback. You're just reliant on looking at comments in the inbox more than anything. But yeah, I enjoyed it. So I just adapted to doing a few different things. Like one of them's from an idea from Peter Kay, like twisted lyrics you thought you heard, and sending theirs in and everything else. I do my research and playing them and just trying to get the audience involved, and it was good. And quite a few comedians, I said, "Can you do me a set?" And one week, everyone just did something on COVID and sent it in to me. And I thought, "Wow, are you all talking to each other?" And 3 comedians all wrote a song about me and the pub. You know, it's great.
Yeah,
fair play.
Yeah,
fair
brilliant,
play.
brilliant.
Well, that's good to keep it going. And what about the pubs that you regularly use? Because that's one thing that we looked at doing. We've spoke with a guy that runs the Mirror in Allsage, who hopefully we're going to get him on at some point. How are those guys holding? How are those businesses holding up? Because, you know, there's a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel. They must be holding on to that glimmer of hope.
I'm quite lucky. The pub where I go is a really busy community pub, and you know they've done okay, and they will continue to be quite successful. But you can see around us these pubs there, the doors are never going to reopen, which is a shame. But on the other side of it as well, the local MP for Warrington, Charlotte Nichols, she's something to do with pubs as well. She's made mine a local as well. So the pub got a mention in the House of Parliament last week.
Did he really?
Wow, brilliant!
My virtual Albion pub got a mention in the House of Parliament.
Brilliant! That's fantastic.
Might get Boris Johnson tuning in to your stand-up nights.
That's it. To be fair, looking at how he dresses, you probably look and get him on as a stand-up comedian. He's got the haircut for it. The only other person we know who ever's got mentioned in the House of Parliament is somebody who actually listens to our podcast. A friend of ours called Dave, and his company got mentioned. He's got his own insurance, or they sell employee benefits or something like that. I apologise, Dave. I do listen to what you say sometimes. And they got a mention, didn't they, by Chucker and Moona in there? But he misquoted him, and it was something they didn't do. And he got an apology. They got an apology off him, but it wasn't a public one, and he was quite upset about it, wasn't he? Probably.
Yeah. Bless him.
Yeah. He won't appreciate me mentioning that one. I'll no doubt I'll get a text when this one goes out. So that's great. That is great to hear. So when is it the pubs then? Fingers crossed. You know, I know it's data, not dates. When are they likely to be opened back up again for customers?
It's about the second week in April. They can open in the beer gardens and
serve outside. I think I want to say like the 12th, is it, or 11th or 12th of April or something like that, is it? You can serve outside. So there's lots of people that are looking at like gazebos and various other sort of things that they can do. But I don't know I don't know what the date is when you can actually go in. I don't know when you can actually go into a pub as such. I don't know.
I think that's going to be towards the end of May if everything goes right. But again, how many pubs have got the luxury of these big beer gardens and and then staff involved? And I can see some pubs again just saying, well, I'm going to stay shut till May and keep all just the money that the government are giving me, because once they open the doors, they're not entitled to a penny.
Yeah, and that's the thing, I suppose, and that's the balance between, I suppose, staying shut and taking the benefit from whether it's a furlough or the grants or whatever it may be, or do you open and try and get some income in? But then as soon as you open, then you've got your lighting, your heating, your wages, or your stock, everything else that comes with it, I suppose. So I suppose it is a bit of a balancing act, and that's why I can understand why there'll be lots of places that will just stay shut. They literally stay shut until like the last minute, and then they'll open and hope that obviously people come back.
100%. I know a big part of your routine as well, Dave, is your long-suffering wife. You've done many a joke about Mrs. A, haven't you? How does she take that?
Do you know what? She loves it, but she hates it. She never likes to admit, and it is. If I say a Mrs. A joke, I get a slap, and yet she goes, "I'm Mrs. A," and all this line. It did, and it wasn't even a joke. I just put on Facebook just for a laugh. But for every like that this status gets, I'm going to throw something at Mrs. A and take a photo of it all at the end. He got 100 likes.
But did you go through with it?
All I did, went upstairs into the bedroom and got a picture and put like a book, a brush, and all this stuff, and just put it into a big pile. But most of the people who were clicking like were Mrs. A's family and friends.
Oh, that's it. Yeah, there's nothing worse than family and friends for sticking the boot in.
Yeah.
So then, something else that you're keen on as well. Something I'm not a big fan of, although as a Welshman I should be, is the rugby. What you must be missing that then as well during these COVID times.
I am. I'm really missing it, especially like I'm a season ticket holder, and we didn't virtually get any season last year, and I was one of them where Warrington's classed as a rich club, big owners and everything else, and I'm on the fans forum, so I sit round and have meetings with the chief exec and stuff. So, and he tells you openly and honestly how the club is, and we give them honest feedback. So it's great. And when they said that they're in dire straits, and so virtually, I think it was over 3/4 of the season ticket holders surrendered the season tickets and said, "We don't want a refund. Yeah. We want to keep the club going." Yeah. And the reason why they said that the bigger clubs were struggling rather than the lower league ones is because they're reliant on hospitality and things like that, whereas the lower teams not. It's just the money goes through the turnstile, which they were getting back. But the likes of Warrington, Wigan, St Helens have not got all the other revenues that they were getting. So, yeah, I've really, really, really missed it. But I'm just still not optimistic seeing the game for quite a while, because even when they talk about reduced capacity, you're talking about 3,000 people in a stadium that holds 18.
Yeah. I think that's one of the things we mentioned on a few different podcasts, haven't we? Now, where we've talked about it. We talked about, obviously. I don't know if you follow rugby. Do you follow the American football at all?
No,
not a fan of that. No, I take it back. That's your answer. Not a fan at all. But yeah, the Super Bowl we had. What was it? 30,000 people in a stadium that holds 180.
180 or something. Was it 180,000? Is it something?
Yeah, it's just an insane stadium, isn't it?
Yeah, ridiculous. And I get the fact that it's 10% or 20% or whatever it is, and okay, obviously the bigger the stadium, you think 30,000 people in there, you think, oh, that's fantastic, but and that would fill Warrington Wolves Stadium twice over nearly, as such. But then you look at but bigger stadium, 30,000 people, it's nothing. You know, it literally is nothing. And as you said, you know, it's like 3,000 people in the, is it Halliwell Jones Stadium, whatever it Warrington is. So, you know, you've got 3,000 people in there, and it'd be just like, you'd feel as though they were just rattling around. You know, for stadiums to work, they need to be full, they need to be bouncing, you know, they need to be, you know, and actually, you know, when I went through a phase of watching quite a lot of rugby league, really, and one of my dad's friends, really, he was a massive Warrington Wolves fan, and they were the team that really you know, if I'm watching rugby league, they would be the team that I'd sort of their results I look for first. So I suppose if I do have a rugby league team, Warrington would be it. And I know he's a massive fan, and he used to go. And actually, to be fair, that there's quite a few guys in Osage that are quite big Warrington Wolves fans, and they would regularly go up and, you know, on a minibus or whatever, you know, there'd be a group of them that go up and get tickets and stuff. And I know that they miss it. It just, to me, in a way, it seems either you have the whole stadium or nobody. And I know there's the ballot, but I don't know whether that seems fair to me. It's like some people get to go, yet others don't. And is it literally just a random ballot? And what happens if you win the ballot and you can't go? Does that mean then that you forfeit it the next time? You know, I just don't see how the ballot sort of works, really. And for me, it's either you get everybody in or sort of nobody, because half-empty stadiums doesn't really work for me. I suppose it's great for those people that can go, but it's just not quite the same, is it?
No.
I just don't. Yeah, you know, I mean, obviously the Euros is a big one, and we hope, touch wood, you know, hopefully the Euros football will crack on and stadiums will be full. But I'm a bit sceptical, I must admit.
Like this year as well, it's with the Rugby League World Cup, and it's in a lot of the hosts are in the northwest, including Warrington Wolves.
Yeah.
The Rugby League have told the council prepare for the World Cup, but don't put too much effort into it. So in other words,
it's not good. Yeah.
Wow. And when's that due to happen?
That's towards the end of the year.
Well, that's quite depressing to hear, that, isn't it? Really?
Yeah. It is, when we've got various things planned for Tilbury Radio throughout 2021, and we're probably not going to get to go and do that. But
it's not looking like it. I mean, we have got it's a little less salubrious than the Rugby World Cup, but we are, you know, we've got a trip up to Scotland, haven't we, for the Disability Darts World Cup. Hopefully that one goes ahead. But again, you know, whether the crowds there is rather irrelevant, really. It's whether the people be able to travel to it, and that's the thing, isn't it? People coming in and out. But I know Halliwell Jones as well, because I saw some of your chat on Facebook. It's not just rugby that goes on there. It's vaccinations as well, isn't it, Dave?
Yeah, so that's been the main hub for the vaccination and testing centre at different ends of the stadium. Yeah.
Wow. And you got yours done there, did you?
I did. Yeah.
Fair play.
Then is the PDRL. So obviously Warrington have set up the very first team for disability rugby, hosted by obviously our star player Adam Mills from the last legs, and I got really involved in that in the last couple of seasons. Initially through Co-op sponsor being one of the sponsors. And I got to know all the team and Adam really well, and even invited on the team coach to away games and stuff. And the laugh with them lads, absolutely hysterically. And we make stories of in their lives, and you know, and how they've lost a leg or two legs or whatever it might be. And you know, there's some funny guys with just nothing but positivity in their lives. It's great. And again, not being able to play rugby and meet the mates for over a year is difficult.
How I know most sporting communities are quite tight knit, and I watched the Rob Burrows sort of documentary. In terms of the rugby league sort of family as such, would all of the clubs have sort of done something for him, or would it be just mainly be Leeds? Was it Leeds or?
No, everyone gets round and everyone.
Yeah.
It's like one of our own. Just Rob, everyone's been fundraising. Just to say, when they had their issues and looked like they were going out of existence, every club and every fan donated to try and keep them in existence.
Yeah. And that's fantastic, isn't it? Yeah, and you look at, you can put rivalries aside. You look at, like I say, your Wigans, your Warringtons, your St Helens, your Hull KR, all of those sort of, you sort of your clubs, and I suppose it is more traditional sort of northern. And I know there's there's teams in sort of Catalan now, teams from Europe, but I suppose you put your rivalries aside when something like that happens, and it happens to, as you just said, one of your own, and you sort of pull together, you knit together, and there is that sense of this sort of community support and that. And I know that a lot of the sort of rugby league clubs are very community based clubs, and that's not to say that football clubs aren't, but I suppose, does it go back to the rugby league being the working class sport, and it's that real sense of community, I suppose, that everybody just pulls together.
Yeah, you're right. It is, and everyone there's rivalry on the stands, and everyone hates each other, but
yeah,
everyone gets on so well. It's like a couple of seasons ago, we were at Wembley playing Catalan, and it was just a carnival atmosphere. Sharing drinks and hugs and kissing each other and everything else. It was just fantastic.
Yeah, and that's brilliant, isn't it? And that I suppose that does give you a real sense of sort of community and stuff. And I suppose when you do get something like the Rob, and every club will have people that they will have their own charities that they support and this, that, and the other. But I suppose when you get somebody in a way as high profile as Rob, I suppose it brings into focus the fact that it's all the clubs that pull together, and it's everybody that's pulling together for him.
Just like only probably 8-9 years ago, we went through it ourselves with one of our players, Mike Gregory.
Of course, yeah.
So,
yeah. It is a shame, but as I say, it does give you a real sense of pride and gratification that you actually can come together. You do put that rivalry aside, and it is for the greater cause almost. That's fantastic.
Yeah, fair play. I've got to be honest there. A lot of the people there, I'm not a big rugby fan, so a lot of those names, I'm afraid, I'm not familiar with. I will Google them afterwards and just find out. Gaz is our resident sports guy.
Yeah, if you do get the chance, even as a non-sportsman, if you do get to watch the sort of program about Rob Burrows, sort of Leeds legend, I suppose, it's worth a watch. It is. It's quite harrowing, I suppose, in a way, and to see somebody, I say, relatively young, be sort of struck down in the way that he is, and that's not to say that he should be singled out more than other people that suffer, but I suppose being a sort of high-profile sort of sportsman, it's just brought into focus, really. But if you do get a chance to watch it, it is worth watching. It is a decent watch, to be fair.
Yeah, fair play. I'll look out for that then. So bringing it back to comedy then, what can you plan then for the rest of 2021 in terms of your comedy nights? Have you got people lined up yet? Anything that you can tell us about?
To be fair, I've got absolutely nothing lined up. It's one of them. I think like a lot of places, want to get the doors open and see what happens. Is there still going to be the nervous people not wanting to come in? Is everyone going to flock in? People are going to be trying to all save up and go on holidays. It's a bit of an unknown territory at the moment. And like I say, how many people can you get in a venue? And everything. But it'll happen. It'll come. But I want to do it. And I want to do it when it's right as well.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It's the closest thing I can compare it to is we talked about taking the kids to be Euro Disney, I think, to start off because they're very young, and that's it. We don't want to do it without being able to do all the things that you want to be able to do properly. There's no point doing it now or in 6 months' time and you're not allowed to touch the mouse. I mean, that sounds like a terrible euphemism, but I promise you it's not. Just to be able to do those things, that normality is something that I never thought that I would crave as much as you do. And I thought then when you were talking about the rugby and the Catalan club and everybody hugging each other, actually that closeness. I'm not a huggy feely kind of guy, but it's something that you missed, isn't it? Just human contact. And I just for one can't wait for a little bit of normality.
Obviously, Big Ray. You know, he has a lot to do with. So my dad, affectionately known as Big Ray, he sort of is chairman of Radway Sports and Social Club, which is like a local community sort of social club, really, and there's various darts teams that are out from there and stuff. And he's, you know, he's saying he can't wait for the doors to open again and people to get back to the normality and getting to meet each other, talk to each other, interact with each other. But they regularly will have acts. They've got like a big venue room, like a big sort of. They've got two sides to it, and actually their ballroom as such is quite big. You would get, I say quite big, you would get a couple of hundred people in there maybe and stuff, and they regularly have sort of acts on and stuff. And he was saying they just can't even remotely start to plan who you're going to have and when you're going to have and get in any sort of calendar moving forward, just because you just don't know. Literally, I remember talking to one of my work colleagues last year, and it was about a year ago because it was the 21st of March or something last year. And I remember talking to my colleague saying, well, what they'll probably do is they'll probably close the schools a week before Easter and maybe a week after Easter, and they'll maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and then that'll be it. It'll blow over and everything will be fine. And now, like a year later, we're still planning on what we can and what we can't do. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? So, and for somebody in the entertainment industry like yourself, it must be difficult just in terms of trying to plan, because if you wait for the doors to open and then you get on the blower and it's like, right, can you come in? Oh, actually, sorry, I've been booked. And then it's like, right, your phone. Oh, actually, sorry. And I suppose it is that, like, when do you actually take the risk of booking somebody because actually they might not be able to do it? It's a real jeopardy sort of situation. It must be horrible. And I don't envy it at all.
If as well, Dave, if you ever need anybody who looks, for the most part, acts like Jim Bowen, it's Dad, honestly.
Well. If our application goes well, I do. You never know, do you? You know what I
mean? Yeah, you never. Yeah, tell you what. Yeah. Oh, yeah. We can't say too much about that.
Don't say too much about that, no, because that might be another TV thing. But you never know.
That's it. So then, before we close out, then let's just talk about some of your favourite comedians. Then, obviously, part of the fun is doing the comedy, but also it's going to see your favourite. Who's your favourite comedian then that you've been and seen?
In terms of paid comedians, I do like Jason Manford. I've seen him quite a few times. I really like him. Jimmy Carr, I hate him on TV. I really, really can't stand him. Live, when you're on that front row and he's giving you banter, I really liked him. Peter Kay, when he was doing the small theatre tours, saw him at the Power Hall in Warrington. There's probably about 500 there. Again, really, really good. In terms of comedians off the circuit, there's some right characters out there. Some who have become, really good friends with, and that's fantastic. But one for you to have a look on and do a bit of YouTube on is the legend is Mr. Badger.
Mr. Badger.
And he does cast and things like that. He's very inappropriate. Now, this guy first come to me comedy night about 3 years ago, and he was one of them struggling a little bit, looking towards the floor and have I got permission to speak in this room? And then he come back in a Badger outfit, and my God, is he a different guy altogether? Yeah. One of the things I asked him to do at Christmas, my daughter's shit scared, and absolutely shit scared. The voice and the mask and the hat and the glove, and he actually did for me 20-year-old daughter a Christmas video message, and basically it was that he's stalking her, pictures of him trying to have Mr. Badger's special medicine and all this. He's one of those nicest guys you can meet, and he'll quite often mess you. How are you doing during lockdown? How's things and everything else? But once he gets on that stage, he's ruthless.
Oh wow! Yeah,
another two guys who I've known for probably 7 years now of doing comedy are called Special Needs, Tony and Jeff. Two disabled lads in Liverpool. And one of them's got, well, they introduce themselves as, I've got cerebral palsy and I'm terribly baldy. But they come on stage and they just basically take the piss out themselves for 10 minutes. And you think, should I be laughing at this?
Yeah.
And they finish off the finale is the song The Killers, Human, but to their lyrics. The lyrics are just, again, have a look on YouTube. Not appropriate, but yeah, hysterical. And again, become really good friends with them as well.
Oh, fair play. I'll have to have a look for those. I can see Gaz is eagerly Googling. Probably.
I am sorry, I was. Yeah, no, I was. I was sort of. I thought, have I heard of it? And I haven't, but I will have a little listen as such. Yeah, absolutely.
It was some of the favourite people then that you've seen, Gazza.
I mean, years and years and years ago, and he's obviously really inappropriate. But I remember watching Chubby Brown, and he's one of those people you'd like him. Literally, his mum, you'd like him or you hate him. And when you were there, you literally couldn't help but sort of be entertained by him. And whether you were dying for a piss or not, you would not move, because as soon as you got up and you started moving, walking off, he would literally just absolutely rinse you. So you'd sit there basically dead still, dead move, didn't do anything. But he was funny. There's a guy. I mean, a couple of guys that obviously most people will have heard of. And I think we went together. And obviously you got Rod Gilbert. I thought was very funny. Really, really funny guy. And there's a guy. I think he comes from Liverpool. And he sort of does a circuit. I remember seeing him years ago, and I saw him again recently. There's a guy called Gary Skyner, and he's basically flew mad. He's got the tooth. So he's basically flew mad, hilarious, like such a funny guy. And he actually came to the cricket club in Osage, and that's the first time I saw him. And then the second time was, I think it's at Witchford Park, which is the golf club that I remember at. And so I've seen him twice now, and just a very, very, very funny guy. And if you do get the chance to sort of, to listen to him, to watch him, brilliant. Yeah, really, really funny guy. And then obviously, I said, I didn't know whether you were going to mention, but John Bishop, we had a really good laugh at, didn't we? We went together and watched with our sort of wives and stuff. And he was somebody that I didn't expect to actually quite like as much as I did. He's one of those people that you thought, yeah, he's okay, but when you're there actually at the concert or at the stadium and stuff, he was very, very funny, wasn't he?
He was, yeah, he was hilarious. As used to come in my shop in Murdershaw as well. He did, Dave, from time to time. He's got a sister that way, believe it or not, so I was told.
Wow.
Yeah, never got to meet him, unfortunately. I probably wasn't there as often as I should have been. Anyway. Andy, what about yourself?
I've seen Al Murray a couple of times, like one for his stand-up show and one for Compete for the Meat, that TV show he did. He went to Frog and Bucket and did before it was aired, he did a practice run and stuff, so that was pretty good. And Lee Evans as well, seen him in his last tour. That was pretty good. And John Richardson as well.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I really want to see Paul Chowdhury. I don't know if you've seen his stuff. He's on it's Netflix or Amazon. It's Amazon. He's pretty funny.
Right.
Yeah. Dave Chappelle is really good as well.
You're a big fan. Yeah, you're a big fan of Dave Chappelle, aren't you? I had a bad experience actually with John Richardson. I booked tickets to go see him, but I had far too much to drink when I booked him, and I booked him for the Vicky Hall, thinking it was in Hanley, and it wasn't. It was something like Woking. So I turn up at the Vicky Hall in Hanley with the wife, and it was like a load of kids dressed like in British art costumes and stuff. We had wrestling on. It was like, I'm tempted to stay for this.
They weren't kids, they were dwarfs.
Well, that's a whole different podcast. You're going to go there again.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, Gaz has got a reputation for wrestling dwarfs, but that's for another night. That one.
Once happened.
Dwarf,
What was that? Sorry.
dwarf tossing.
Yeah, well, yeah, that was the other one. Yeah, that's a very
That's
different
very
episode. Yeah. So then, let's wrap it up. We're at the hour mark. Dave, if you'd like to say your goodbyes.
Okay, thanks very much for having me.
No,
Pleasure.
Thank you very much for joining us. Gaza?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. But it's been it's been great. So quite a light-hearted sort of episode and stuff. So yeah, really look forward to seeing whether or not we take up your advice and actually do end up giving the Edinburgh Fringe a swerve, which sounds like that might be the better option. Enjoyed listening to some of your stories and stuff. So enjoyed it. Fantastic. Thanks very much for coming on, and look forward to the next time.
Cool. Andy?
Yes, echoing the other guys. It's a good episode. It's good hearing how like shows are made up and what you do, and also what you do during the pandemic as well. So it's good.
Yeah, absolutely. That was interesting for me actually. And I think that's the interesting thing, isn't it? And that's a little bit about, we're getting into the adaptability of mankind, isn't it? Really, is to when we're faced by challenges like this, whether they're social, whether they're physical, how we adapt to it and how we move on and how we progress. And that for me was quite interesting. Thank you very much for joining us. I've really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed listening to your experiences, because it's something that I've known you for many, many years, always known what you did, but probably something that we've never, ever had a conversation about. So I appreciate that. Thank you very much for sharing. And something that hopefully maybe, if it's not us doing it, maybe we can get ourselves up there when everything's back to normal. Come and watch one of your comedy nights, and then, maybe drag a few people onto the mic and have a conversation with them afterwards, after we've all had a beer or two. Does that sound like a plan?
That definitely sounds like a plan to me.
Yeah, nice one. So until next time, when no doubt we'll have plenty more stuff to talk about. Take care.